The Bangkok sky burned a brilliant orange before surrendering to the damp, suffocating night. Ploy sighed, pulling the curtain down, but it couldn't block the musty smell of the old apartment. It was a familiar scent, always mingling with the faint aroma of incense drifting from somewhere distant. This whole condominium felt like a living thing, panting with each sunset, its pitch-black hallways echoing with footsteps no one could see. A recent string of brutal murders in the area had pushed her to install a rear camera. The victims all shared a grim similarity: missing body parts. That security camera was supposed to bring peace of mind, but lately it had become the source of her nightmares. Her phone would buzz relentlessly, right at midnight, screaming about an intruder. Yet every single time she checked the app, the hallway was empty. The peephole confirmed it. Nothing but silent, oppressive darkness. Tonight, the alarm blared again, piercing and relentless. Ploy jolted awake, her heart hammering against her ribs. 1 a.m. She fumbled for her phone, the screen lighting up with a crystal-clear image from the camera. As always, the hallway was deserted. But then, she noticed something new. A strange, sweet, and cloying scent was seeping through the crack under her door. It smelled like lotus incense, but mixed with something else. Something sickeningly sweet. The aroma made her skin crawl. Cautiously, she slipped out of bed, her feet cold on the floor, and pressed her eye to the peephole. Still, nothing but inky blackness. Suddenly, a dark figure flashed by, so fast she thought her eyes were playing tricks on her. Then, a whisper carried on the air, as soft as the wind, yet chillingly unmistakable. "Ploy, do you remember me?" She recoiled, trembling, a wave of cold washing over her. The voice stirred a hazy, buried memory from her college days. A memory of a timid girl named Molly, a girl who was always the target of bullies. Ploy and her friend Suthan, who was now a real estate tycoon. And her close friend Fon had once participated in a cruel game. One night, they'd locked Molly in a school laboratory as a prank. The next morning, she was gone. Her body was found a week later. The whole incident was hushed up, and the three of them did their best to forget it ever happened. The next morning, Ploy met Suthan and Fon at a cafe, her hands shaking as she recounted the night's events. Fun, always the bold one, just dismissed it. Electronics always glitch. Ploy, you're just stressing yourself out. But, who was usually so composed, looked genuinely concerned. "I heard the whispers too," he admitted, his voice low, "and I smelled the incense." Fon shot them a scornful look, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of hidden fear. As she stood up to leave, she accidentally knocked over her glass. Water spread across the dark wood of the table, forming a strange, unmistakable shape. A lotus flower. Fun just stared at it, her lips moving as if she were whispering something to herself, before turning and walking out without another word. That night, Ploy decided not to turn off her phone. She needed to know. As the clock neared midnight, the camera alarm shrieked again. This time, the image was not empty. A figure in a white dress, its face completely obscured by long, black hair, stood silently right in front of her door. Ploy gasped, her thumb instinctively pressing the sound button on the app. A weak, mournful voice, filled with anguish, crackled through the phone speaker. "You left me alone," it moaned. "Now it's my turn." Just as suddenly as it appeared, the figure vanished, but the cloying scent of incense was no longer just a whisper from the hallway. It was now filling her room. She frantically called Suthan, but there was no answer. She tried Fan. A strange, shrill voice, not Fan's at all, answered, "Run, Ploy. But you can't hide forever." Panic seized her. Ploy threw open her door and dashed into the dark hallway, her own footsteps echoing like pounding drums. She rounded a corner and collided with someone. It was Suthan, but something was terribly wrong. He was dressed in pristine, traditional Thai clothing, pure white, without a single speck of dirt. The strong, sweet scent of incense was rolling off him in waves. Ploy Suthan's voice was high and shrill, identical to the voice she'd heard on Fawn's phone. "We need to talk about Molly," Ploy screamed, shoving him away, and scrambled for the stairs. The shrill, unearthly laughter of Fawn and the heavy footsteps of Suthan chased her all the way down. She burst out onto the nearly empty street, gasping for air. There, under the flickering neon of a signboard, stood Fawn. Her face was twisted into a horrifying grin, and in her hand she held a single burning stick of incense. "We all have sins, Ploy," Fawn said, her voice no longer her own. "And now, it's time to pay." Ploy stumbled backward, only to bump into some. His face was a blank mask, his eyes soulless voids. He raised a knife, its blade glinting in the dim light. "She was so lonely," Suthan said, his voice flat, but his eyes piercing right through her. "She needed us." In that horrifying moment, Ploy finally understood. This wasn't Molly's ghost haunting them. It was their own obsession, their own suffocating guilt that had birthed this toxic, spiritual entity. "We didn't do anything wrong," Ploy screamed, her voice raw with desperation. "It was an accident. An accident." The voice of Molly rang out clearly, but it came from both Fawn and Suthan at the same time, a terrifying, layered sound. "You left me to die. You turned your backs on me." Fawn advanced, holding the incense stick like a weapon. Suthan raised the knife higher. In their eyes, she no longer saw her friends. She saw only pure, unadulterated madness. She tried to run, but her legs felt like they were rooted to the pavement. The sweet, suffocating scent of incense enveloped her, choking her. The footsteps closed in, and Molly's whispers echoed inside her skull. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry," Ploy cried, her strength finally giving out as she collapsed onto the street. A cold hand touched her shoulder. She looked up and saw Fawn's face looming over her, but her eyes were entirely alien as black and empty as seeds. "Too late," a voice whispered. Ploy screamed, and everything plunged into darkness. She awoke to chaos. Red and blue police lights flashed across her face, and the air was filled with murmured voices. She'd been found in a state of severe shock, lying on the pavement beside the bodies of Fawn and Sooth. The official report closed the case as a tragic collective psychosis. Ploy survived. She even returned to the old apartment, where everything impossibly seemed normal again. The security camera stayed silent. The nightmares faded, but one evening, as she sat in her quiet living room, a familiar scent wafted through the air. Lotus incense. Her heart began to race. Her phone, which had been silent for weeks, chimed with a notification. Her hands trembled as she slowly picked it up. The camera app opened automatically, showing the empty, silent hallway. But then, a figure in white stepped into the frame. It moved closer and closer until its face filled the entire screen. It was Ploy's face. Her eyes were pitch black, and her mouth was stretched into a terrifying, inhuman grin. "We will always be together." A voice sounded through the speaker, her own voice, yet not her own. One family. Ploy dropped the phone. A shrill, manic laugh. She tried to suppress it, to fight it, but she could feel her lips still spreading into a helpless, horrifying smile. A new entity born from the guilt she had buried so deep had finally taken control. It had found its final home. Thank you so much for joining me on this terrifying journey. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more chillin' tailies. Stay safe out there, and see you in the next video.